Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my February 2022 book haul. I have a wide variety here, both in terms of content and also in terms of page size and whether or not I've read them. The fact that I've read any, I suppose, means purchases justified, so huzzah! And most of the rest I will be reading in the very near future. I thought I'd start with my shortest purchases and also the two I've already read from. These are the Main Street Rag Literary Journal for Winter 2022 and the Sycamore Review, which was for Winter-Spring 2021. I read and reviewed these two literary journals along with the Baltimore Review in my recent Literary Journals Review, where I read and discussed short stories. I'll link that video down below. And also, more specifically, this is the edition where my own recent short story, Cliffs and Vistas, was just published. So, very excited about that, and I'll link to more information if you're curious about that. This small little book, only about 257 pages total, is my most expensive purchase so far this month. This is Beyond the Synagogue, Jewish Nostalgia as a Religious Practice by Rachel B. Gross, which I pretty much picked to be my nonfiction pick for the Maybe Midrash Readathon in May, which was started by Steve Donahue and Jason and Felicia to read a book of fiction and a book of nonfiction dealing with religion. I tend to use the Jewish Book Awards that are announced in January to decide on that TBR these last couple of years. And I went ahead and I bought this because I actually had a pretty hefty coupon from Barnes & Noble from work, so I thought, why not? But now I'm kind of waiting. I waited on it. I'm not sure if this would have been available from the library, but maybe I could have just gone ahead and gotten it from there because I had some other purchases that came up as well. But I am excited for this either way, and maybe it's good to give a little money for these expensive nonfiction endeavors. Obviously, it takes a lot of work to do the research for a book like this. And maybe I'll go ahead and just read from the flap, just to do that at least once in this video. So anyway, in 2007, the museum at Eldridge Street opened at the site of a restored 19th century synagogue, originally built by some of the first Eastern European Jewish immigrants to New York City. Visitors to the museum are invited to stand along indentations on the floor where footprints of congregants past have worn down the soft pine wood. Here, many feel a palpable connection to the history surrounding them. Beyond the Synagogue argues that nostalgic activities such as visiting the museum at Eldridge Street or eating traditional Jewish foods should be understood as American Jewish religious practices. In making the case that these practices are not just cultural, but are actually religious, Rachel B. Gross asserts that many prominent sociologists and historians have mistakenly concluded that American Judaism is in decline, and she contends that they may be looking in the wrong places for Jewish religious activity. If they looked outside of traditional institutions and practices, such as attendance at synagogue or membership in Jewish community centers, they would see that the embrace of nostalgia provides evidence of an alternative, underappreciated way of being Jewish and mainlining Jewish continuity. Tracing American Jews' involvement in a broad array of ostensibly non-religious activities, including conducting Jewish genealogical research, visiting Jewish historic sites, purchasing books and toys that teach Jewish nostalgia to children, and seeking out traditional Jewish foods, Gross argues that these practices illuminate how many American Jews find and make meaning within American Judaism today. So yeah, reading through this is a really interesting premise, a rather challenging one that I'm not sure on its face, at least right now, without having read it yet, I agree with. Calling this religion, these acts of nostalgia, as she calls them, especially because on their face is the answer to why it's not religion, or at least Jewish religion, where history is memory and it's cyclical and it's not about like looking at something that's past, it's about reliving the past in a cyclical nature over and over again as memory. Whereas so many of the things that she said here, perhaps barring eating Jewish food, or about looking back on something that like nostalgia makes it seem like it's not really there anymore. You know, it just to me has a different connotation to how many Jewish religious people describe Jewish religion. So that's really interesting. So yeah, I will very much be looking forward to reading this book. Next, I have a book that I'm in the middle of reading right now. Well, middle is a kind word and an inaccurate one. But anyway, it is The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. Technically a BookTube Prize book, but I'm not reading it for the BookTube Prize. I'm reading it for my mom and auntie's book club, which will be meeting mid to late March, but I wanted to get through it because I know my mom will want to take this copy away from me. And alas, I wish we'd looked, or at least I had looked at my library systems to confirm that, you know, it's heavily backlogged. I never would have been able to get it for this month to be able to finish it in time. Anyway, so I had to buy it with my nice coupon from Barnes & Noble, but still, I'm not thrilled that I bought this one. I mean, I'm enjoying it enough so far, and I guess it's, you know, good to support the industry, yada yada. So there we have it. I will be checking back. I'm not sure if in Friday Reads videos if I'll be talking about this. Not so much because of the BookTube Prize, because since I'm not reading it as a judge, I don't feel like I need to keep quiet about it. But I tend to keep my Friday reads contained to the month they're in. So, you know, my next one will be in March, and this is technically not a March book, although let's be real, I will be finishing it in March, so maybe I'll make an exception anyway, probably. Could be of interest since this is such a popular book, so I will be giving my thoughts either in a video or in my upcoming literary newsletter and Goodreads review. And finally, speaking of a BookTube Prize book I am reading for my judging ballot, I have The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoré Fronon Jeffers. This is another one that I definitely would not have gotten from the library in time to read it for the Octafinals because it is hugely popular. It holds up the wazoo. So I was very happy. I actually, for this one, went to my local list of local bookstores, Loyalty Books in their Silver Spring location. Wanted to make sure I supported them at least once in 2022, so why not start out the gate? There's plenty of other local indies I want to support along the way as well, so hence what I said. Anyway, I'm wondering with this book, can I count it as a March of the Mammoths book, which is another readathon that Jason and some others are hosting this month, or in March, I should say, which is to read books that are over 800 pages long. This book is over 800 pages long, but a lot of the last few pages are actually historical notes and acknowledgments and that sort of thing, and the actual story narrative itself is only 790 pages, which I'll just be frank, I'll be thrilled if I get through that amount alone. I'm nervous about this book. I also have some other chunky BookTube Prize books that I'm going to be reading in March, so I have a big, you know, challenge ahead of me as it is, although frankly I'm sure some of that historical stuff will be fascinating to read on its own. And if I do read it, it's like two birds with one stone, right? You know, reading for the BookTube Prize and for the March of the Mammoths, so huzzah! I'm hoping to post this on the 28th, on the final day of February, and admittedly I might be ending the month with one final book purchase for my Israel Book Club, which meets on March 8th. Early in the month, I put myself on a list through my interlibrary loan system to get our book, The Wandering Jew, from, you know, another library in the Maryland system because I couldn't find it through the libraries otherwise. And I would rather use the library than buy, but by this point I'm pretty sure I don't have a choice because I haven't heard anything from ILL. And I don't know when I'm going to get the book, and there's only so much time I would have then to read it before the 8th. So I'll probably end up buying that one as well. It's another pricey nonfiction book. And unlike either of these big chunksters, it won't end up likely on my mother's bookshelf after it leaves mine. But I am intrigued about it. I definitely want to read it and partake in the book club. My Israel book club has predominantly been focused on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but The Wandering Jew, I believe, will be a little bit more about inner religious strife in Israel between the ultra-Orthodox and the rest of us. But I'll definitely be reporting back on that one, hopefully in my next Friday Reads video, whether or not I read a library copy or a purchased copy. So that about covers it for me now. You can find the Goodreads links for all of these books I mentioned listed down below. As this is the last day of February, my next video will be in March, and I think I'm going to go ahead and start with a Friday Reads. So hopefully I'll have some good stuff to share with you. I'll be finished with the Lincoln Highway. I'll hopefully be in the midst of reading The Wandering Jew. I've got an audiobook lined up for the beginning of the month that I'm excited about. And plenty of other reading I hope to get to in March as well. I have a list of 10 books that I want to get to in March. 3 of them being chunky BookTube prize books, and I have a looming deadline with that one after all. I have to have my ballot in by the 30th. So it might end up being a stressful reading month, but I'm hopeful and feeling optimistic that I can pull through at the end and hopefully have good reading experiences to tell you about along the way. Not the BookTube prize, I can't talk about the books on my ballot, but all the other books I hope to be reading on top of that I'll be talking about on the way, so stay tuned. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.